My Adventures with Superman Comic-Con got to exclusively watch episode 5. We have seen it, James and I. You all have not. You're not going to see it until next week. Sucks to be you.
I have
But
not either. Don't worry, I'm with you.
we are not going to spoil anything. We're going to make sure that, if any of us slip up, we go back and edit it so you don't have to worry about that. I'm just going to let you know what you should expect, kind of give you some idea as to the worth of the episode, essentially. I do think this episode is just as good as 4. I think it does something stronger, which I can't really get into, but we saw it with a crowd. So I can very much say that this episode was getting a very positive reaction, especially with the humor. There's a hilarious bit in this episode that was genuinely like the funniest thing in the show. And I was really shocked to find myself laughing at it as much as I did. And I know I wasn't the only one. James, you were too.
Oh yeah, I was laughing. It's funny.
And then the show really begins to serialize itself. It starts to, we talk about how we've had some issues with its freak of the week nature. So if you're wanting the show to start to build towards something, this episode does that. Once again, literally can't basically say a word on it. But it really it ties the first half of the season together, because I mean this is the mid-season point. It's a 10-episode season.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so
it's kind of sad.
It is kind of sad,
Yeah.
we're getting to that point where we're getting really invested in this show, and
I'm glad to be sad about it.
I'm glad to be sad about it. I want this show to have more than 2 seasons, and thank God it's getting 2. So I can't really say much on it, but I heavily recommend that you check out the show next week, because it's really just proving this to be this consistent build. Personally, I think I like this episode a little bit more than 4. Where would you?
I would agree. I agree, and I can speak to why, and it's definitely
okay.
You can do so non-spoilery. So yeah, going off of how episode 4 ended, that Lois, she gets out, she gets her investigator board out. She's like Clark Kent is Superman. So this episode is her trying to prove it, and not going to give away where that ends. However, they get fun humor out of that, like we talked about, and they get good relationship stuff. They've really started to invest the time into seeing Lois and Clark's relationship grow beat by beat. They've done a really good job.
Yeah, we have 5 episodes of a cartoon, and they're incredibly developed.
Yeah, you care about these versions of the characters.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a great episode for Lois. So that's where I'll kind of leave that.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, Superman stories are their best when Lois is just as much of a protagonist as Clark, and this episode, I really feel that.
I'm just surprised how much, now that we're at the halfway point, how much this has just immediately jumped in as one of my favorite versions of Lois, because they've evolved a lot of her traits into, it's a more immature version of the character, but it's very fun. You feel like you're seeing Lois Lane at her core without maybe this she doesn't have this journalist persona yet.
Yeah, she doesn't have the experience. She hasn't built herself up, and neither has, I mean, I think that's just like a constant theme with the show, is that these characters are finding themselves as we learn their origins. So you can kind of get a grasp for who they are before they're the characters that we know. In a show like Superman and Lois, where Clark has been Superman for 20 years, and not like there's not merit to that, but it's cool to see that perspective. So I think
there's also, not getting too into it, but yeah, as far as what Superman is doing in this episode, the most I'll say is that, what Jacob said is accurate. If you wanted to see some of the serial stuff pick up and it not be caught in Freak of the Week for too long, you'll start to feel that satisfaction. And we really are just throwing out the Spectacular Spider-Man comparisons, very, very, very loosely now. But it's a fair comparison to make, if maybe not in quality all the time, at least in intention. And this reminds me of when, once again, halfway through the first season, it's like, oh, Peter's found out about the big man. He wants to know who the big man is. That you're starting to see that the Freak of the Week stuff
has some reasoning to it.
It has been laying groundwork for where the show is ultimately going. I really enjoy that.
I think that's basically all we can say.
That's really all we can say.
That's really exciting. Just as someone who has not watched it, I'm definitely going to watch it. And hey, viewer, if you want to hear our thoughts on it, tune in next week when we will go into it. There you go. Subscribe.
So I think, do you have anything else to say?
I do. Two small things. One thing is, I thought this was actually the best episode with handling the Superman feel, not the Clark and Lois stuff.
Okay.
But as far as when
That's
Superman is suited up, using his powers, this is actually, I think, the best episode. When he's in his fight, as he is in each episode, I was like, I feel like I'm watching a real proper Superman cartoon right now.
Yeah.
So I think they're getting more confident with the Superman side now.
Yeah, I mean, I think they really spent the first act of this show setting up the characters and their dynamics and their relationships, and now we're gonna get that juicy Superman mythos and plot and really be able to explore that. And I don't think that would be as rewarding if we didn't have that intimate dive into the characters that we got in the first chapter of the show.
Yeah, my last point to say is, and it really has to do more so with watching this with the crowd, I am really glad to see that, even in a time where there's a lot of cynical storytelling, I am really happy to see that this very optimistic, very like Superman with trunks kind of tone of a show.
Yeah.
I am happy to see a modern audience embracing it, enjoying it, having fun with it. I'm sure the show has detractors, but this show
I haven't seen many, honestly.
I haven't seen many, and maybe they're gonna rise up as the first season ends or something. However, there's this anxiety in DC Comics with how they handle the character. I'm sure in fans too, that oh man, can Superman not fully work like he used to? And that's led to all these reinventions of him. But I think we're getting back to just realizing that he's like Steve Rogers, that you don't have to change him that much.
I mean, yeah, I have never really fallen out of love with the character. I've always just disagreed with the whole "is he dated" concept.
This show wears it on the sleeve, though, to just do him how he's always been done.
Yeah, this is just Superman. And if you ever thought that Superman was a relic of the past, just go watch this show because it's coming out every week, and it's the same character that was around 80 years ago. I think it does modernize him, though, in very compelling ways. And if you're just looking to get into the character, I mean, I cannot recommend this enough.
It modernizes him without some
compromise,
attempted grand deconstruction to reveal who he really is. It's just like, nah, he's just a simple guy that wants to help.
Yeah. I mean, I always go back to the Tyler Hoechlin interview. Tyler Hoechlin interview where he questions why it is boring to be good. And he really asks listeners and the audience and just, I guess, consumers of media why we're not appealed by stuff that shows an ultimately good character. I mean, look, I love shows that have these deconstructions of characters, but I mean, recently I've just been watching so much of it. I mean, not to spoil any shows, but like Breaking Bad, Attack on Titan, and I'm like, I need a show that I need a character that will.
I just want my protagonist to smile, damn it.
Yeah, exactly.
You want a character that's a rock.
I want a character that's a convicted rock that doesn't abandon their morals. And not all these shows have these people turn for bad, but it's good to see a character like Superman be in the limelight.